Hi, this is Marcia, and I just completed a 6-hour workshop with Judson ISD from San Antonio, Texas. And the 6-hour workshop was a kickoff to getting started with blended learning. I just want to recap some of the big things that were our conversations. One of the big things that the teachers wanted to know was, what does a fall look like? I'm only able to give some predictions about what the fall could look like because every school district is going to have to make their own decisions. But one of the big things that I shared with the team of teachers today is a rollout plan. I created a rollout plan, a step-by-step guide for the teachers to think about how in a blended learning environment to train the students on the different aspects of blended learning. This was a really good activity because the teachers had that ability to ask questions. I revealed short little ideas. I broke it down from this big giant what is blended learning into this is how you get started. So the rollout plan that I shared with Judson ISD today was an 8-week process. You guys, this is really what we need to think about. Regardless if we're on site or if we're virtual, setting up an 8-week, hey, here's some ideas you can do. That was by far one of the biggest key takeaways from today's lesson. The other thing that I really used was Zoom. I keep using Zoom for my workshops because I can do some breakout sessions. So I'll pose a question and I'll get the teachers going and then they'll go out into a breakout room. And I started it out today with a fun activity using blank slate. So what I did to get the teachers into learning about blended learning and just breaking the ice is I set them up by doing a couple of questions using blank slate. The way blank slate works is you have question box. In the question box, you have different words. So it says blank hyper. Then the teachers would have to come up with another word that would match it. This was really good icebreaker because, one, I got to know the teachers as I was bouncing in and out of the breakout rooms. But two, it just gave them some opportunity to talk and to listen to each other. Their goal was to match. And when they matched somebody, oh my gosh, they got super excited. Blank slate is definitely a good way to start out any professional development workshop. I bought it from Target. Super fun. And then they also learned how to do the breakout rooms. The other thing that I was using a lot today, which I would recommend to anybody who is doing online teaching, professional development, trying to engage your audience, is the Hovercam Solo 8. I'm telling you this, it was really good because the participants were able to watch me draw out a blended learning lesson. They were able to see what exactly I was talking about when I was showcasing my checklist folders. That Hovercam really did take the student engagement, the participant engagement up a level. I also took time before the end of today to actually interview a teacher. This is a teacher who I worked with quickly, so short in December. I think she said she had 1 hour training with me in December. Then she started watching some of my webinars. I interviewed her to actually showcase and talk about what her blended learning experience is like. So I'm going to pause right now so you can hear her talk about her quick 3-month experience with blended learning in an on-site classroom.
But I will tell you the engagement for the students went up. And almost like their ownership for the content, there was a definite shift in the classroom and the dynamic.
After being at 1 hour workshop with me, you went back and redesigned your classroom and you noticed right away the big change.
Yeah, and I would say it took maybe a couple of weeks for them to be like, okay, what are we doing? And so my room has basically 2 walls of whiteboard. So I made a gigantic chart on the board with the groups, and at the top I would just switch around what they were responsible for. So they knew, what do I do? Look at the board. What's your color? Where do you see the color today? And so there was no question about what the expectation was.
They automatically knew that.
Great.
And you started blended learning because I came to Kirby in December. So you started this When? January?
Oh, so then if you came in December, it was when we came back after Christmas.
And then
It
you
was after Christmas because I was thought this would be the perfect time since we're kind of reintroducing the norms or whatever anyways. I'm like, hi, guess what? We're going to do things differently now.
That's awesome. Could you imagine what it would have been like if you would have had them for the whole year and the outcome of what
Well, and honestly, if we had been there the whole year and if we were able to take our state exams, which, on one hand, yay, but on the other hand, oh, I wish we could have done it. Like, I know that those kids would have had gains. And even just that little time that we had. So I had my kids for, 45 minutes, but then they did have another ELAR class. And the feedback that I got from those content teachers were like, what are you doing? Because those kids are like engaged now. Yeah.
I love it. So what did you think about today's 6-hour workshop? I mean, did it feel like 6 hours?
But I liked it. I don't think it felt like 6 hours. I really liked how you used the breakout rooms so that we could kind of get the full immersive experience if we were the student.
That's great. I love breakout rooms in Zoom. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
But what was one key takeaway that you're like, whoa, this is something that I wish I would have done in my short time of blending this year? What was one thing that you're like, oh, that would have been great to use?
I would have done the checklist because I know for me as an adult, I'm the kind of person where if I can check it off and see and feel that I got it done, because I know some of my kids, especially after lunch, they lose their train of focus. So like, it's one thing to have the expectation on the board, but I think if I would have had the checklist at the beginning of the week, then if they had a doctor's appointment or if they got in trouble or if there was a couple times where we had lockdown drills where it messed up the flow of the week, then that way they could pick up the paper and be like, okay, I did these two. Oh, Miss Nieves, this is what I have left to do. So I think that would have given them even one little bit more of ownership.
Okay, my last question for you. What is one tip or trick that you would tell a new blended learning teacher?
You need to plan. You can't expect to do this on the fly. Like, you have to take the time to truly understand what your end game is. So I think you have to kind of think about in the future, what is it that you want to accomplish, and you have to sit down and plan it. So I'm also one of those teachers that sometimes I'm like, what am I going to do today? With this, you have to really think about what you want your studios to look like. How do you want the movement in the room to look like and feel like? You can't just walk in and expect it to figure it out in 5 minutes.
But was it planning hard after you did it a couple of times? Did it get easier? Because, I mean, you're right. Planning is essential in making sure the kids know exactly what to do. But did it get easier as you were doing it?
It got so much easier. So I have just standard desks. And even just like figuring out how to arrange the furniture took a little bit of getting used to. But once I had all that figured out, I'm like, okay, so my digital one always stayed the same because we have this computer adaptive program that it always stays the same. So that was the thing. And then I really like using Scope magazine. So I always made sure at least one of the stations had that somehow built in. So my only decision, I guess you'd have to say, is, am I doing expository or fiction or poetry? Like, what's going to be the focus for that independent station? And then it would just have to be, what are my other two going to be? So are they going to do a game? Are they going to read silently? And then with me, what's the focus that they were going to have with me that day? But once I got the hang of it, and honestly, I think the hardest part, no, it was the hardest part, because I had pages and pages in the notebook of me figuring it out, is figuring out the groups. Like in theory, I knew what it would look like, but the actual implementation of like figuring out what's going to go where, and then the secret sauce of figuring out what kids were great and what kids can't be together, like that took some time. But there were some groups that worked so well that I was like, I'm never switching them. They're going to stay together the whole time, because there were some groups where they really kept themselves on track, and you could see the natural leadership come out, where they would help each other and stay on track. And then there was a few groups where they were really low skills. I'm like, when you're with me, it's going to be gold. But when you're by yourself, I'm like, okay, what are they doing? They're not doing it. They're not getting it. We'll figure it out when it's small group time later in the week. So,
well, I appreciate it. I'm really super excited about working with you again, and I'm really looking forward to having that on-site coaching and being in your classroom and taking you to that next level. So I'm sure I'm going to be joining you in this journey for the next couple of months. So if you have any questions, you definitely let me know, okay?
Cool. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Bye. See you next time.
Thank you. Wow, we can learn so much from each other. I want to thank you for watching and learning, and to really think about what blended learning can look like in the fall. I know we don't have all the answers, but coming up with a game plan, a rollout plan, a 7-week hypothetical blended learning environment is one way to get started. So if you are looking for good quality professional development, if you want to come up with a way to get your staff ready for the fall, please reach out to me. You can find all of our information at blendedlearningpd.com, or you can direct email me at marcia@blendedlearningpd.com. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I look forward to sharing out more ideas and tips and tricks as we go through working with schools in a virtual blended learning environment.